This build has so much damage reduction and so much health as well as health regeneration that even apocalypse bosses can't kill you. With today's build, we'll be putting our character at maximum damage reduction, well over 200 health, be able to move fast, and be able to refill our mod of choice every 3 shots, creating an incredibly powerful tank that can easily build towards doing damage and actually being able to do a crap ton of damage on top of being nearly unkillable. This build is heavily inspired by Discord user CyrusCyan, so shout out to him. This build does not utilize any sort of exploits or glitches, it's just a really well done and proper build, so this build will probably not really be touched upon unless one of these items ends up getting nerfed. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about how the build works, and then we'll be getting down to the exact build list. So for this build, we'll be synergizing 3 different rings, and in my opinion, these are the key rings for this build. First off, we'll be using the Atonement Fold. This ring will cause us to take 1.1 bleed damage per second, and we will of course offset this damage by utilizing the regrowth perk. We also of course get that extra 10% extra critical chance, which will make us do a little bit more damage. So now we're officially taking damage, but our health is not really going down thanks to regrowth. So then we put in the Hardcore Metal Band, which every time we take damage, we gain a stack of Bulwark that stacks up to 5 times. So since we have that Atonement Fold ring equipped, we're constantly taking damage and regenerating it back up, so this means we'll have a 100% uptime on 5 stacks of Bulwark. For the third ring, we'll be using the Dried Clay ring, and the biggest reason we have this ring equipped is that it takes all 5 of those stacks of Bulwark and turns it into damage, increasing our character's total damage by at least 15%, making us once again not just tanky, but also making us be able to hit quite a bit harder. So with these 3 key rings out of the way, let's go over the entire build. For the armor set, we'll want to equip ourselves with the Leto Mark II set to maximize on our armor. Moving down to the relic, we have the Tranquil Heart. This in my opinion is a rather flexible choice, but for the sake of this video I went with the Tranquil Heart. However, for the relic fragments, I would not consider these flexible. And for this build, we have the health fragment, the healing effectiveness, and the armor effectiveness fragment. Moving over to the weapons, I do consider the primary choice to not really be much of a flexible choice for my build. The reason for that is that the new Sparkfire shotgun, when combined with the Maelstrom mutator, creates an insane amount of mod generation, which allows us to loop our mods pretty much every 2 to 3 shots. And for this tanky build, I utilize the healing shot, and again, when combined with the Sparkfire and Maelstrom, I have a healing shot always ready to go, making my character more overpowered than he already is. For the melee and this sidearm, these are rather flexible. I always use the Nebula as a sidearm when I have nothing specific in mind for the sidearm, as I love the mod that comes with it. Now on to the necklace. For the necklace, we have the Brewmaster Scork. This necklace is going to assist us reaching the maximum damage reduction by giving us nearly 10% total damage reduction just by utilizing this necklace, on top of already the 2 extra concoctions and whatever buff they will provide for us. For the rings, we use the 3 we have mentioned previously, the Dried Clay ring, the Atonement Fold, and the Hardcore Metal Band. And lastly, we have equipped the Seal of the Empress. Although I will say this ring is yet another flexible piece. The extra health will of course make us a bit tankier, but I already feel we are tanky as shit, so you can probably use whatever else you'd prefer. However, once again, for the sake of this video, I do stick with this ring. As far as the archetype goes, we want to use the Alchemist, as the Prime archetype perk will allow us to utilize 4 different concoctions. And these 4 concoctions, aside from their obvious benefits, do also add onto the necklace we have equipped, giving us further damage reduction. For the Alchemist skill, this is also pretty flexible. I use Elixir of Life for the sake of this video, but using this build just to go around the worlds, I personally use the Frenzied Dust, as it'll help me kill off enemies quicker. For the secondary archetype, we use Medic while utilizing the Healing Shield. The Healing Shield benefits the most from having really high health builds, which is where the Seal of Empress rings come into play. By utilizing Medic, you're even more so tankier, and you can make use of the Benefactor Medic perk if you're struggling with stagger. Now before we go on to traits, let's talk about these 6 concoctions of choice. The ones that are not quite flexible and should always be in use is the Meat Shake, the Mudtooth Tonic, and the Darksider. The other ones are more or less flexible, even though I would probably never switch out to root water, and maybe not even chilled steam, but you probably could easily swap out chilled steam and dark fluid for Verdant Tea and the Tranquility font with no problem. So lastly for the build, let's move on to the traits. First off, for the must-have traits, we have got regrowth to both of regen and to offset the self-inflicted damage. We also must use strong back so that our Letter Mark 2 set brings us from ultra heavy to just heavy, which will enable us to dodge and play even safer. Fortify is also necessary to maximize our damage reduction. 6 points in Bark Skin just to bring us to that maximum total damage reduction, which is 80% in case you're not aware. Vigor to bring our health up by 30 more. And lastly, Siphoner to make us lifesteal any damage we put out, which makes our life even easier. Leaves out 30 more or less flexible points. For these last 30, I'd recommend Untouchable to make our life even easier once again, then 10 more in Swiftness, and for the last 10, I'd either use an Endurance if you're not using Verdant Tea, or 10 points in Footwork, but these remaining points are really up to you. And so that's as far as this build goes. Let's go ahead and take on a boss fight and discuss how this build works in an actual Apocalypse boss fight. And to further display you the strength of this build, I will not even bother dodging most of the attacks except for the one-hit mechanics, or even bother sprinting for that matter. I'll just take the damage, just to show you how strong this build really is. So let's go ahead and get right down to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and take Failing here. We have these 6 concoctions ready to go. Let's go ahead and start this fight. I'll start off with Nebula and using its mod, of course. Once again, I'm not really going to be bothered dodging much. I'm just gonna eat all of these up. As you can see, my health just regenerates quite fast without much struggle. And with the Sparkfire shotgun, I just do so much damage that you know, we're honestly quite fine here, and it doesn't even necessarily feel like we're using much of a tank build. And of course, as I said earlier, you can make this class do even more damage. You can probably swap out Seal of Empress for something more powerful. But yeah, here we are. He hit us a couple of times there that hit him pretty hard. So there's the first healing shot, and look how quickly that healing shot's gonna come back. 1 shot, 2 shots, and healing shot is pretty much back. We take that third one just to close it off, and that's also the power of this build, is we're able to regenerate that mod so quickly. Which, by the way, brings me to another point. You could probably utilize a damage mod if you rather do that instead of healing shot. One thing that you must take into account for this playthrough, I am not using anything that reduces stagger. I'm also not using anything that would make my life easier, such as dodging or sprinting. So of course, if you do that, you're not going to be constantly as staggered as I am, and you're definitely probably not even going to need to be utilizing the healing shots. So that mechanic right there that he just used on me generally is able to one-hit a normal build, but that only took like 20% of my health. The healing shot still regenerates you almost back to full, even though we have bleeding, which reduces healing effectiveness by 50%. It's incredibly strong. So yeah, personally, if I'm just going on around the world, I probably would just use a mod that does damage. The only reason why I went for healing shot here is for the sake of this video, to show you that you don't even really need to dodge. You can just kind of face tank a boss, and as long as you're healing shots here and there or using the medic skill, then you're pretty much good to go. But realistically, in a regular game, you're gonna be dodging these, which, by the way, since we're only on heavy encumbrance, you know, we can dodge easily. You know, we don't flop, we just regular dodge. So dodging is gonna be quite easy for us to do. So if you're dodging, you should honestly pretty much be immortal. The only way you're really going to die by utilizing this build is if you actually get caught by one-hit mechanics, or you get caught in a flurry of attacks and just kind of suck at dodging. Again, for the sake of this build, I'm not dodging on purpose, but I almost died there, so I had to use the medic healing shield. Because since I'm not dodging, I just constantly got staggered like one after the other. But if I just even attempted to dodge even once, that would have broken that chain of staggers. And it just happened there again. But it's crazy, man. It's crazy. You don't even need to even be a good player at dodging at all. You can just throw in this build and you can probably face roll the entire campaign without dying. Onto this phase, Phelan has a certain mechanic that is a one hit. It seems that even at 80% damage reduction, it still is a one hit. Previous to this run here that you're watching, I did die to this mechanic, as I did not know that it was actually a one hit mechanic. I'll go ahead and show you when he tries to do it on me. Oh, it's right here, this one, which is why I dodged there. That mechanic is actually a one-hit mechanic, apparently, because I have 80% damage reduction and he just like blows right through me. So of course you're going to be having to pay attention to that, but again, if you're playing normally and actually dodging from time to time, you're completely fine. Just you just got to kind of figure out which mechanic is a one-hit mechanic and avoid that, and you're pretty much good to go. Of course, there are a couple of bosses in Remnant 2, as you are aware, that have these one-hit mechanics that you have to dodge or else you die. I mean, there's no way around it. Unless you're using an exploit or a cheat, then you're gonna die to it. And that's the one right there. Actually, I guess it's not entirely a one-hit. It brought me down from 100% to about 5%. So maybe on the previous run I already had taken a hit. But yeah, either way, even if that's not a one-hit mechanic, most bosses have a pure one-hit mechanic that you have to dodge at all costs. And as you can see, man, the damage is pretty good, dude. The damage is pretty good. And like I said, you can swap out the Seal of Empress and you can put in something for more damage. You can also use your traits a little bit different. You know, this is more or less kind of a hybrid build in the sense that you can swap out a couple of things. You can even swap out dried clay, the ring dried clay, as it increases your damage if you have something else that's better. So this build does have some flexibility to it. I probably just would never change Atonement Fold and Hardcore Metal Band, but everything else is pretty flexible. So this is pretty much it. I thought I had the kill right here and I thought it was over, which is why I stopped shooting. But then I realized that it wasn't over. I'm like, what the hell? Like, everything stopped. Even the swords stopped coming out of the sky, and I really thought I killed him. But yeah, as you can see, Phelan has Hardy, and for a pure tank build, we actually do quite a bit of damage, being able to take them fairly quickly for a build that's only focused on pretty much damage reduction. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today's build. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be catching you guys on the next one. Peace.